Tragedy on campus. Police say a freshman at Northern Arizona University killed one person and wounded 3 others. Chaos on Capitol Hill. The pressure is on for the GOP to find a candidate for House Speaker.
In Syria, in Iraq, at Jerusalem.
Synod session. Pope Francis asks his brother bishops to pray for peace in the Middle East and Africa. Visit with Benedict. Our Alan Holdren tells us about his meeting with the Pope Emeritus. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Friday, October 9th, 2015. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jason Calvi, in for Brian Patrick with your news now. 2 deadly shootings on 2 college campuses within hours. One at Texas Southern University and another at Northern Arizona. They come just 1 week after a shooting left 9 dead at a college in Oregon. Mark Irons has more.
Jason, 1 person is dead and another wounded in the Texas shootings. This comes hours after more violence erupted in Arizona on an Arizona campus. Meanwhile, the president left the White House today for Roseburg, Oregon, where he's meeting with the family members of victims of last week's shooting rampage.
We are, of course, shocked and deeply saddened by the circumstances that bring us together this morning.
A campus shooting at Northern Arizona University has left 1 dead and 3 wounded. The shooting occurred at 1:20 a.m. in a campus parking lot after a fight broke out between 2 groups.
One of our students, Stephen Jones, 18 years old, produced a handgun, and he shot 4 of our other students.
The news came as President Obama left for Oregon to visit with families of the victims in the Umpqua Community College massacre. Those killings have sparked a national debate on gun control.
We got to keep getting up every day and fighting back.
If you focus on the guns, you're missing the bigger picture, which is the fact that people have been isolated, estranged.
There are strong opinions on both sides of the issue. Catholic writer Ramesh Ponnuru says church teaching doesn't explicitly say what the faithful have to do about gun violence.
I favor some gun regulations and oppose others, but I think that you can be either to my right or to my left and still be a Catholic who is trying to reason with the church about how best to promote the common good.
Our thoughts are with the victims and their families.
Today, Northern Arizona University students consoled each other at a press conference. Campus prayer services are scheduled to take place. Gun rights protesters were gathered when the president landed in Roseburg today. Now, he is expected to meet privately with the family members of victims from last week's shooting spree, but he's not expected to speak publicly about gun control. Jason?
All right, Mark Irons at the White House. Thanks, Mark. Now, some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The U.S. is abandoning its efforts to train moderate rebels in Syria.
We're looking at different ways to achieve basically the same kind of strategic objective, which is the right one, which is to enable capable, motivated forces on the ground to retake territory from ISIL and reclaim Syrian territory from extremism.
A U.S. official says the current program is being suspended while the Obama administration looks for other ways to support moderate groups in Syria. A border clash in Gaza kills 3 and injures about a dozen. That according to Gaza's health ministry. The Israeli military says about 200 Palestinians threw rocks and burning tires at troops on the border. The military says it opened fire. The border has been mostly quiet since last year's conflict between Israel and Hamas, the militant group that controls Gaza. Recently, though, several rockets from Gaza have been fired at Israel. Meanwhile, Israeli police say a Palestinian stabbed an Israeli teenager in Jerusalem. It's the latest in a series of attacks this week against Israeli civilians and soldiers. Police say the 14-year-old was not seriously wounded in an apparent revenge attack an Israeli stabbed 4 Arabs in southern Israel. Well, the Nobel Peace Prize goes to a Tunisian group of workers, human rights activists, and lawyers. The Nobel Committee recognized the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet for its efforts to build democracy and prevent civil war after the country's 2011 revolution. Tunisian protesters sparked the Arab Spring uprisings that overthrew dictators across the Arab world. The prize is a huge victory for Tunisia, whose democracy is young and shaky. So, what's next for House Republicans? GOP leaders scramble to find the next Speaker of the House. The chaos follows Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy's surprise announcement he's withdrawing from the race. Catherine Szeltner reports from Capitol Hill with the latest. Catherine?
Jason, essentially 2 House speakers have stepped down in less than 2 weeks. With this political drama, some lawmakers put the blame on a powerful bloc of conservative congressmen.
What has happened for 4.5 years under John Boehner is you wait till the last day and say, hey, here's the only thing you can do.
Kansas Representative Tim Huelskamp is glad to see Boehner step down. He's one of the 40-some members of Congress who make up the House Freedom Caucus, a conservative invite-only group many believe forced Boehner to resign. What are you looking for in the next Speaker of the House? What does that position mean to you?
We need to change the way we're doing business here in Washington. Far too much takes place in one office around one man and one person and a bunch of staff. It should involve 435 members.
Some now blame the caucus for upending the Speaker race after they endorsed Florida's Daniel Webster, not frontrunner Kevin McCarthy. But Huelskamp stands behind Webster, saying he's the man if the GOP wants to defund Planned Parenthood.
I also know Dan, know his heart. I mean, he fought on life issues, on the Terri Schiavo issue. He demonstrated his commitment to life, and I think that's important.
While there are 2 Speaker nominees, Webster and Utah's Jason Chaffetz, all eyes are on Wisconsin's Paul Ryan. Ryan stands by previous statements that he best serves the country as the Ways and Means Committee chairman, saying, "While I am grateful for the encouragement I've received, I will not be a candidate." Today, California Representative Darrell Issa hints that could soon change.
I think at the end of the day, or the end of the week, Paul Ryan will be our Speaker presumptive.
Issa says Paul Ryan has the dream job right now and a good work-life balance with his family. That might be why he is so hesitant to run. We'll continue to monitor this developing story. Jason?
We appreciate that very much. Thank you, Catherine. And Michael Warren is a staff writer at the Weekly Standard. Michael, would you bet on Paul Ryan becoming the next Speaker?
Well, there are certainly a lot of people in Congress who are betting, or maybe the better term is praying, that Paul Ryan takes this. I'm not so sure about that. I think that there's this big groundswell, as Catherine reported, for Paul Ryan to get in, but he doesn't want to do it. And you know, it's going to be really difficult, I think, to convince him if he really doesn't want to. He cites his family, having to go back to Wisconsin, his home state, every week to see his young kids. And of course, the work that he's doing on the House Ways and Means Committee is really sort of what he's always wanted to do. So I'm not sure the speakership really fits him. And it's kind of a little unseemly for the Republicans to be on their knees begging for him to take it.
Why has he become such a favorite right now?
Well, he is seen, and I think rightly so, as sort of the most unifying figure within the conference. This is a conference that has a lot of different people on a pretty wide spectrum on the sort of center-right side of our politics, and Paul Ryan is very popular. In addition to being very popular with the conference, he's also got great name recognition throughout the country, so he's very easy to sell to some of those very conservative members if they're interested in supporting him.
Do you see anybody else then bridging the gap if Paul Ryan doesn't run for Speaker?
I mean, there will be. There simply has to be. There will be somebody who does it. The question is who. And I think right now it's so chaotic. Everybody was so surprised by Kevin McCarthy's decision to withdraw from the race that everyone's kind of taking a deep breath and figuring out, okay, wait a second, there are some other options here. I think Jeb Hensarling from Texas, perhaps Cathy McMorris Rodgers, there are a number of names who could potentially get in, but they're of course not jumping in quite yet because it's still a little too fluid.
McMorris Rodgers would be the first female Republican Speaker of the House.
Right. Now, of course, she's not coming out and saying that she wants to run, but she does kind of occupy an interesting position as the conference chair, and she's really pushing forward, I'm told by members of Congress, the sort of try to find some unity on the issues that Freedom Caucus is interested in, as well as finding somebody, and she might end up finding herself to be that person. Who knows?
It would be incredible. What else are you hearing? I know you met with and talked with a lot of representatives today. What else have you been hearing from them today?
Well, of course, yesterday was so chaotic, and a lot of people were just thrown off by the announcement. Today, they were coming out of a conference meeting that happened at 9 a.m. this morning on Capitol Hill. A lot calmer, a lot more sort of centered and maybe even unified. Who knows how long that unity will last, but there is definitely a sense that this isn't the disaster that the press and maybe we thought it was to have Kevin McCarthy leave. There may be a future here if we can just sort of recollect. They're on a recess next week. They'll go back home to their home districts, and maybe they can find a way forward that everybody's on board with.
Sure has been very exciting to cover, that's for sure. Michael Warren, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Michael Warren with the Weekly Standard. Thank you. Coming up, the Synod of Bishops meeting in Rome wraps its first week of discussions. We'll tell you what they covered. And a pro-life woman who had 3 abortions shares her story with Congress and with us. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI this week visiting with our team in Rome. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Jason Calvi, in for Brian Patrick. Well, Cardinal Luis Tagle, the Archbishop of Manila, was one of the Synod Fathers to brief the media today. The Cardinal joined Father Federico Lombardi and other bishops in the Vatican press office. He explained that the document bishops are reflecting on is a work in progress.
It is by the very nature and purpose of an instrumentum laboris to be a tentative document. In fact, it is called a martyr document. It must be ready to be martyred.
And today, the small groups presented their reflections on the first part of that working document on the mission of the family in the church. Alan Holdren joins us now from Rome. Alan, there's been some controversy over the Pope's comments to bishops earlier this week. What's this all about?
Well, Jason, those comments were never fully released. We don't have the transcription of what the Pope actually said, but one of the participants in the Synod said that the Pope spoke about conspiracy within the Synod, and he spoke to the bishops saying that they should avoid any sort of manipulation of the outcomes of the Synod and just let free, frank discussion flow within the Synod Hall. The Vatican spokesman, Father Lombardi, played down these comments, saying that the Pope was just inviting a real spirit of unity within the bishops and this frankness and sincerity in their discussions.
Alan, I wanted to ask, some of the bishops are critical of the working document. What are their critiques?
Well, we heard a lot about this today because the results of these small group discussions came out today. There are 13 of them. 4 of them are in English, and 3 of those were especially harsh against that working document, speaking about its condescending language towards the family, and also how it gives a special emphasis to the negative aspects of what the crisis of the family is today, instead of promoting really the beauty of the family in the world as an example of faith and God's presence.
And Alan, this is incredible. You met with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI this week. Tell us, how's he doing and what did he tell you?
Jason, it was really an incredible experience. We had the opportunity to go to the monastery there in the Vatican Gardens to say hello to him. He accepted our request to present to him and ask for his blessing for this new edition of Catholic News Agency in the German language. He spoke to us about how necessary it is, how important it is in Germany today to have good, solid Catholic information. And he also said that young people today really need to know that the church is not dead and that it's living. So some really strong words from Pope Benedict in that
regard. And some inspiration for our work as well. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Jason.
And the House Judiciary Committee took its turn questioning witnesses this week in the ongoing investigation of Planned Parenthood. One witness gave compelling testimony about her own experience with abortion.
If it was illegal then, do you think it would have made a difference in your decision?
In my decision? Almost definitely. I didn't do illegal things. So I would not have had an abortion, and I would be able to see who my children are today.
Luana Stoltenberg was one of 4 witnesses testifying about Planned Parenthood's practices. The abortion provider is under fire after allegations it harvests baby organs for profit. And Luana joins us now. Thanks for being with us. Tell us a little bit about your own experience with abortion.
Well, I was devastated by abortion. I had 3 abortions when I was in my teen years, and because of those abortions, I was unable to have my own children.
And I know you talked about some of the pain, some of the hurt that you had with abortion. Do you feel like you were heard by people on the other side?
Not really, Jason, not really. I felt like it kind of fell on deaf ears, and that many of them, especially on the left side of the aisle, had their own agenda, and they had made up their mind and were just not hearing of any wrongdoing with Planned Parenthood.
That is so unfortunate. One of the things that was really interesting is you actually challenged some of the people that were pro-choice. What did you say to them?
I did. I challenged them because I wanted to know why it would be more important not to protect women who have been hurt by abortion and rather take campaign pledges and money from Planned Parenthood. I feel like they protect Planned Parenthood because of those donations.
And you said that to them, to their face. What was the response?
I did. I could tell that I was getting some darts from some of the Democrats. Wow. Yeah.
And you kept going, though. You kept going, and they kept coming back and hammering you on that point.
Yes, they did. They kept talking about how they didn't take donations from Planned Parenthood, and quite honestly, they do, because it's just under PACT money. But yes, almost everyone on the aisle had.
I want to know, how did you become pro-life after 3 abortions as a youngster?
You know, I became pro-life because I couldn't have my own children, and so I started investigating what was this abortion, how could this have happened to me, and because I wasn't told the truth at Planned Parenthood. I wasn't told that this was taking the life of my child, that they were ripping that child out, you know, had arms and fingers and toes. None of that was told to me at Planned Parenthood, or the risks, and so I started investigating it. What was abortion? What was the procedure that they had done on me? And realized that this was wrong. This is not helping women. This is not health care. This is hurting women. It's hurting our society, quite honestly.
Wow, and part of your work now is with Operation Outcry. What is that? What do you do?
Operation Outcry is pretty much an arm of the Justice Foundation. We are women who have been hurt by abortion, and so we go out and we speak wherever someone will have us be heard, in churches, in schools, before Congress.
And here you were speaking to Congress, telling them what your experience was with abortion. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our representatives this week.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for what you guys do here. Report the truth.
Thank you very much for being. Hope to have you on again. Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, Christian persecution in the Middle East. One group is asking Congress to weigh in. And Mexico is getting excited for Pope Francis's visit next year. Today, the church honors Saint Denis, bishop and martyr. As the first bishop of Paris, he converted many. This angered the local officials and led to his beheading in the year 250. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Jason Calvi. Well, Pope Francis asks bishops gathered for the Synod to pray for peace in the Middle East. The appeal came as the Holy Father addressed Synod participants this morning. He said they're following the news in Syria, Iraq, and Israel. Pope Francis urged the international community to use diplomacy to resolve the conflicts. Ninar Keyrouz is Director of Media Communications and Outreach for In Defense of Christians. Ninar, you're urging Congress to call what's happening in the Middle East a genocide. Why?
Well, because it's very important to stop it, and it is a genocide. We're not the only ones who are admitting or calling to admit it as a genocide. As you know, Jason, Congressman Stoltenberg announced his House Resolution 75 at our press conference during our National Leadership Convention, and it's important to stop it. Just yesterday, 3 Assyrian Christians were executed in Syria. They were part of a group of 200 people that were kidnapped from the Khabur region. So what does that mean? Are they all going to be executed and the world is watching? We sent out a video of a Yazidi girl who was kidnapped and escaped, another Christian family whose daughter is currently with ISIS. What does that mean? More kidnapping, more slavery of these minorities and Christian women. This is a genocide, and if it doesn't get admitted, then it doesn't stop.
And what is the current numbers in the House of people supporting this? How many representatives are supporting it?
Well, so far we have around 120, but we're looking for much more. And there's no specific number, but we'd like to have at least 200.
Okay, so if it gets approved by the whole House, what will this do?
Well, this will put pressure on the international community to act accordingly, to be liable and responsible for what's happening to these people, and to act, whether militarily speaking or in humanitarianly speaking, to help these people, provide them with a safe place so that they can return to their homes or not leave them, help the NGOs on the ground that are there to serve them, and just solve this issue so that the killings stop and the kidnappings stop.
We can only hope and pray for that. It was interesting at the bishops' gathering in Rome this week. Bishop Yunan, patriarch actually, he's a friend of In Defense of Christians. He said that Christians in the Middle East feel abandoned by the West. Is that true?
Well, we hear that, and from their angle, from their point of view, it's somehow true. They feel that there's not much involvement or not much awareness within international communities, not much action taken by governments or organizations. So we hear this feedback mainly from the Christians in the Middle East, because they don't know how it works here, and that it's taking time, even as you raise awareness and as you work on this issue, it takes time. So they cannot understand they're the ones being killed and losing their homes.
And it's so sad. We've seen the video and the pictures.
Yes.
What can Christians here in the United States, in the West, do to help?
Well, they can support this resolution, and it's really a very simple thing to do. They can go to our website to contact their representative and urge them to co-sponsor it. Our website is idcconvention.org, and they just click on Contact Your Representative, because the more people urge their representatives to vote for this resolution, then the higher chances it is that to pass. And also what they can do is raise awareness, Jason. Awareness is very important. They can raise awareness in church, in school, at work, to know what's going on. If they follow our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, we always post the news from the Middle East about what's happening, so they'll feel involved, and they will feel close to their brothers and sisters over there, and it will become, effortless to help them, to raise awareness.
Thank you, Ninar, for raising awareness. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
And Mexico is gearing up for a visit from Pope Francis next year. The Vatican announced the trip earlier this week. Francis says he wanted to enter the U.S. from Mexico in a sign of solidarity on his recent U.S. trip, but the schedule didn't allow for that. The dates of his Mexico visit have not yet been released. Delia Trueba is with Catholic Voices Mexico, a group that promotes the church's case in the public square. Delia, what does Our Lady of Guadalupe mean to Mexico?
Oh, she means so much. It's hard to describe it in a few words, but I think she's at the heart of our identity. The apparitions of Guadalupe helped us to have an identity and to unite us as a nation, because it helped us after the conquest. When the Spaniard people came to Mexico, it was very hard, and it helped us to have a new identity as Catholics and not so much as indigenous people or Spanish people.
The shrine that Pope Francis is going to visit, what's it like there? What do the faithful do when they visit that shrine?
Oh, it's very exciting for people from Mexico, both things, to visit the shrine and to receive the Pope's visit. So, having the Pope visit the shrine is such a huge symbol. So for people from Mexico, visiting the shrine is something you have to do someday in your life. There are many expeditions. People go walking or biking or however they can. And there's big affluence. You wouldn't believe that it's between 17 million and 20 million people that visit the shrine every year. So it's amazing. It's even more than the Mecca.
Wow, 17 million. How about yourself? How has it touched your life?
Oh, I love going to the Basilica. I'm lucky enough to live in the same city. I used to go not very often, maybe once or twice a year, but I have a few friends who started peregrination going walking, and it takes us for about 3.5 hours to walk to the shrine, and it's made it much more meaningful, because it made me understand many people that do that because of the effort it takes and the meaning of them. It's like, like a metaphor of life. It's the path is very important, no? And you have to know what's your goal, but also the path.
And the Pope will be visiting that next year, so we don't have the dates yet, but looking forward to seeing that visit, and I'm sure Catholic Voices Mexico will be there along with him for that journey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I was very happy to be with you, and I'll be looking forward to speaking to you again.
Until Monday, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Jason Calvi. Good night, and God bless.